Ladies and gentlemen, every life hides stories that never get written in books, but still have the power to change the world. These are the stories of silent battles, unseen sacrifices, late-night struggles, and early morning decisions. The top 10 motivational stories are not about fame, money, or applause. They are about transformation. They are about rising after falling, believing when everything says to quit, and walking forward even when the path is unclear. The first story is the story of beginning with nothing. It is the moment when there are no resources, no support, and no clear direction, only a dream and the courage to take one small step. That step looks insignificant to the world, but it becomes the foundation of something powerful. The second story is about failure. Not one failure, but repeated failure. Doors close, plans collapse, and hope seems distant. Yet instead of accepting defeat, there is a decision to try once more. That extra attempt becomes the turning point. The third story is the story of discipline. Waking up when it is easier to sleep. Working when it is comfortable to rest, staying focused when distractions call from every side. This story is built quietly, day after day, without recognition, but it creates extraordinary strength. The fourth story is about self-belief. When no one else understands the vision, when doubts grow louder than encouragement, there is still a voice inside that says, "Keep going." That voice becomes the guide through the darkest moments. The fifth story is about patience. Success does not arrive quickly. Progress feels slow. Results are invisible for a long time, but consistency continues, and one day the effort that seemed small becomes something unstoppable. The sixth story is the story of stepping out of the comfort zone. Fear is present, uncertainty is real, but growth demands movement. Taking risks opens doors that once looked impossible to unlock. The seventh story is about learning. Mistakes are no longer enemies, they become teachers. Every setback carries a lesson, and every lesson builds wisdom. The eighth story is the story of resilience. Life pushes back, challenges increase, pressure grows. But instead of breaking, there is adaptation. Strength is discovered in moments that once felt unbearable. The ninth story is about purpose. It is no longer just about personal success. It becomes about meaning, impact, and contribution. The journey gains depth and direction, and the 10th story is the story of transformation. The person who once doubted, feared, and struggled is no longer the same. Confidence replaces hesitation, vision replaces confusion, strength replaces weakness. Every remarkable journey starts in a place that looks ordinary. It begins in moments when nothing feels grand, when there is no spotlight, no applause, and often no assurance that the effort will lead anywhere meaningful. A small, courageous step does not shake the world immediately. It quietly reshapes the person who takes it. It is the decision to move forward despite uncertainty, to act despite fear, and to believe despite doubt. In that single movement, something powerful is born, because courage at the beginning is never about size or speed, it is about direction. There is a unique strength required to take the first step when the whole path is not visible. The mind searches for guarantees, for perfect timing, for complete preparation, but the reality of growth is that clarity comes after movement, not before it. The smallest action carries within it the energy of transformation. It breaks the illusion that progress must be dramatic to be meaningful. It proves that motion, no matter how slow, is stronger than standing still. What appears insignificant in the beginning often becomes the foundation for something extraordinary. because every step builds confidence, and confidence multiplies effort. Courage in small steps is different from boldness in big moments. Big moments are rare and often depend on circumstances, but small steps are available every day. They are present in the choice to try again after failure, in the discipline to continue when motivation fades, and in the willingness to learn when mistakes are made. These steps are quiet, almost invisible to others, yet they carry the weight of future success. They train the mind to focus on progress instead of perfection, and they teach patience in a world that demands instant results. A journey that begins with a small, courageous step also changes the relationship with fear. Fear does not disappear, but it loses its control. Each time a step is taken despite hesitation, fear becomes weaker and determination becomes stronger. The unknown no longer looks like a barrier, it begins to look like an opportunity. This shift does not happen overnight, but it happens inevitably when action becomes a habit. The person who once waited for the right moment starts creating the right moment through movement. Small beginnings also carry a deep sense of authenticity. They are not driven by the need to impress. They are driven by the need to grow. There is honesty in starting before feeling ready, in learning while moving, and in accepting that the early stages will be imperfect. That honesty builds resilience, because it removes the pressure to appear successful and replaces it with the desire to become better. Over time, these small efforts accumulate, and what once felt difficult becomes natural. The beauty of a courageous beginning is that it creates momentum. One step leads to another and another until the distance covered becomes impossible to ignore. Progress that once felt invisible becomes visible not only in achievements but in mindset. The way challenges are seen changes. Obstacles become part of the process rather than reasons to stop. The journey itself becomes a source of strength, because it proves again and again that movement is always possible. In these small steps, there is also a powerful lesson about self-trust. Every action taken is a message to the mind that growth is possible. Every effort completed is evidence that commitment exists. This self-trust becomes the driving force for larger actions in the future. What begins as a hesitant movement turns into confident strides, not because the person suddenly becomes fearless, but because they have practiced courage repeatedly in its smallest form. Time plays a silent but important role in this process. The world often celebrates the visible result and overlooks the invisible beginnings. Yet the result is nothing more than a collection of small steps taken consistently. The distance between where someone starts and where they arrive is measured in daily decisions, in moments when giving up would have been easier, and in actions that seem too small to matter at the time. Those actions matter because they shape identity. They turn effort into habit and habit into character. There is something deeply empowering in realizing that greatness does not require a dramatic starting point. It only requires a decision to move. The step does not need to be perfect. It only needs to be taken. It does not need to be fast. It only needs to be forward. In that movement, limits begin to dissolve, and possibilities begin to expand. What once looked distant begins to feel reachable, not because the destination has changed, but because the person walking toward it has changed. A small, courageous step is an act of faith in progress. It is a refusal to remain defined by hesitation. It is a declaration that growth matters more than comfort. And with every repetition, that step becomes easier to take, until the journey itself becomes a reflection of strength, patience, and belief. Failure arrives like an unexpected storm, shaking plans, confidence, and the sense of direction that once felt so certain. In its first moment, it appears final, as if everything that has been built has collapsed into a single point of disappointment. The mind tries to interpret it as a sign to stop, as evidence that the effort was meaningless, as proof that the dream was too far away. Yet, failure is not a wall that blocks the future. It is a door that forces a different way of walking forward. It interrupts the familiar path and demands reflection, growth, and a deeper understanding of purpose. When something does not work out, it strips away illusions. It reveals weaknesses that success often hides. It exposes the gaps in preparation, the need for patience, the importance of discipline, and the areas where belief was fragile. This exposure can feel uncomfortable, but within it lies the greatest opportunity for transformation. The person who chooses to learn instead of withdraw begins to see failure as information rather than defeat. Every mistake becomes a lesson, every setback becomes guidance, and every disappointment becomes a redirection toward a stronger version of effort. There is a powerful shift that happens when failure is no longer taken personally. It stops being a statement about worth and starts becoming a part of the process. Effort is no longer wasted, it is invested in experience. The fear of trying again begins to lose its grip, because the worst has already been faced and survived. In that survival, there is a quiet growth of resilience, a realization that the fall did not end the journey. Instead, it built the strength to continue with greater awareness and determination. Failure also slows everything down in a way that success never does. It forces stillness, and in that stillness there is space to think, to question, and to rebuild. It teaches patience in a world that constantly demands speed. It reminds that meaningful progress is not measured by how quickly something is achieved, but by how deeply something is understood. The lessons learned in difficult moments remain longer than the excitement of easy victories. They become part of character, shaping future decisions and strengthening future actions. A turning point is not always dramatic or visible. Sometimes it is a quiet decision made after a long period of doubt. It is the moment when giving up seems easier, yet something inside chooses to try again. That choice carries more power than any external success, because it is built on inner strength rather than external validation. It marks the transition from seeing obstacles as barriers to seeing them as necessary steps in growth. Failure changes the relationship with effort. It removes the expectation that the path will always be smooth and replaces it with the understanding that challenges are part of progress. This understanding creates a different kind of confidence, one that is not dependent on constant success, but on the ability to continue. The person who has failed and risen again walks forward with a deeper sense of self-trust. There is less fear of uncertainty because there is already proof that difficult moments can be faced and overcome. In many ways, failure refines vision. It separates what is truly important from what was only a temporary desire. It asks difficult questions about commitment, about purpose, and about the willingness to continue without immediate reward. The answers to these questions create clarity. They turn vague goals into meaningful pursuits. They replace the need for quick results with the desire for lasting growth. There is also a quiet humility that comes from failure. It breaks the illusion of control and replaces it with adaptability. It teaches that no journey is linear and that every path includes unexpected turns. This humility does not weaken ambition. It strengthens it by grounding it in reality. It creates openness to learning, to change, and to new approaches that would never have been considered without the experience of falling short. The emotional weight of failure is real, but within that weight, there is the potential for renewal. The moment that feels like an ending often becomes the beginning of a more authentic journey. It removes the pressure to appear perfect and replaces it with the freedom to grow. It encourages persistence not because success is guaranteed, but because growth itself becomes meaningful. Each time failure is faced with courage, it loses its power to define the future. It becomes a chapter instead of the whole story. It becomes a source of strength instead of a source of fear. The direction may change, the pace may slow, the strategy may evolve, but the movement forward continues with greater wisdom and deeper determination. In that continuation, failure fulfills its real purpose not to stop the journey, but to transform the traveler. Discipline creates strength when motivation disappears expended in 700 words without subheading and conclusion. Discipline is the quiet force that continues to move a person forward long after excitement of a new goal has faded. Motivation often arrives with energy, with clear vision, and with the feeling that anything is possible, but it is temporary by nature. It rises and falls depending on mood, environment, and circumstance. There are days when the mind is inspired and ready to conquer challenges, and there are days when even the smallest task feels heavy. In those moments when motivation disappears, discipline becomes the structure that holds everything together. It is the decision to act regardless of how one feels, the commitment to continue even when the emotional drive is absent. Strength built through discipline is different from the strength that comes from bursts of enthusiasm. It is steady, reliable, and deeply rooted. It does not depend on perfect conditions or the right mindset. It grows through repetition, through showing up again and again, even when the process feels ordinary or difficult. Each disciplined action sends a message to the mind that progress is not controlled by feelings. This message slowly transforms hesitation into confidence because it proves that action is always possible even on the hardest days. When motivation fades, distractions become louder. Comfort becomes more attractive than effort. The idea of postponing work begins to feel reasonable. Discipline counters this by creating habits that remove the need for constant decision-making. Instead of asking whether to act, discipline makes action automatic. It turns effort into a routine and consistency into a natural part of life. This reduces the influence of doubt and overthinking, allowing progress to continue without interruption. There is a quiet resilience that grows within a disciplined life. It develops in the early mornings when rest feels more inviting than movement. It develops in the late nights when the mind wants to escape responsibility. It develops in the moments when no one is watching and there is no immediate reward for the effort being made. These are the moments that build real strength, because they are driven by commitment rather than emotion. The person who continues in these moments is not relying on temporary inspiration, but on a deeper sense of purpose. Discipline also creates a powerful relationship with time. Instead of waiting for the right moment, disciplined action makes every moment meaningful. Small efforts accumulate, and what once seemed slow becomes unstoppable progress. The distance covered through consistent work is often invisible at first, but over time it becomes undeniable. This gradual growth builds a form of confidence that motivation alone can never provide. It is the confidence that comes from knowing that effort will continue regardless of how one feels. Another important aspect of discipline is the way it changes self-perception. Each completed task becomes evidence of reliability. Each promise kept to oneself strengthens self-trust. This self-trust is the foundation of inner strength because it removes the fear of inconsistency. When a person knows that they will continue even on difficult days, challenges no longer appear as threats. They become part of the routine, something to be faced with calm determination rather than emotional resistance. Discipline does not remove difficulty, it changes the response to difficulty. It teaches patience in a world that seeks quick results. It replaces the need for immediate satisfaction with the understanding that meaningful achievements require time and effort. This shift in perspective makes obstacles easier to handle, because they are no longer seen as interruptions, but as necessary steps in growth. The disciplined mind does not ask whether the process is easy or enjoyable. It asks whether the process is necessary. There is also a sense of freedom that comes from discipline. At first, discipline may feel restrictive, as if it removes spontaneity or comfort. But over time, it creates more control over life. It reduces stress by eliminating last-minute pressure. It creates space for creativity because the essential work is already being done consistently. It allows rest to be truly restful because there is no guilt attached to unfinished responsibilities. This freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the result of structure. As discipline continues to shape daily actions, strength becomes a natural state rather than an occasional experience. The body adapts to effort, the mind adapts to focus, the emotions adapt to persistence. What once required intense motivation becomes a normal part of life. This transformation is subtle but powerful. It is not marked by sudden changes, but by steady improvement. The person who once depended on inspiration learns to depend on commitment, and this commitment becomes the source of long-lasting progress. In the absence of motivation, discipline becomes the guiding force that keeps the journey alive. It turns ordinary days into productive ones and difficult days into opportunities for growth. It proves that success is not built on how one feels in a single moment, but on what one chooses to do repeatedly. Through this repetition, discipline creates a strength that does not fade with changing emotions. It creates a stability that supports every goal, every effort, and every step forward, making progress inevitable even when the initial excitement has long disappeared. Self-belief is the foundation of every achievement. Expend it in 700 words without subheading and conclusion. Self-belief is the quiet, invisible force that shapes the trajectory of every achievement. It is the inner conviction that despite uncertainty, obstacles, and doubt, one has the ability to take the next step, face the next challenge, and continue moving forward. Without self-belief, skills, talent, and even hard work can falter, because the mind constantly questions whether effort will matter. With self-belief, every step gains purpose, every setback becomes a lesson, and every opportunity is approached with courage. It is not arrogance or overconfidence. It is an unwavering trust in one's potential to grow, learn, and succeed, even when the path ahead is unclear. From the earliest beginnings, self-belief plays a crucial role in shaping action. A person may have goals, dreams, and plans, But unless there is a belief in the possibility of reaching them, these aspirations remain ideas rather than reality. Self-belief gives the permission to try, to take risks, and to step beyond comfort zones. It turns fear into focus, hesitation into action, and uncertainty into determination. It is the spark that ignites the energy to start and the persistence to continue. Even when external circumstances are unfavorable, self-belief acts as an anchor, reminding the individual that effort is meaningful and that potential is real. Challenges and failures test self-belief in profound ways. When plans collapse, when criticism is harsh, and when results are slower than expected, the mind can easily turn inward with doubt. Without self-belief, these moments can feel like confirmations of incapability. But with self-belief, setbacks are seen as part of the journey, as temporary obstacles rather than permanent verdicts. The individual understands that failure does not define them. It only provides feedback to refine approach and strategy. This resilience comes directly from the trust one has in their capacity to grow. It creates a mindset that views difficulties as opportunities to strengthen skills, deepen understanding, and become more prepared for future challenges. Self-belief also influences how a person approaches learning and growth. A mind that trusts its own potential is willing to take risks, make mistakes, and experiment. It does not fear failure because it knows that each experience contributes to development. Learning becomes a process of discovery rather than a test of worth. This confidence encourages curiosity, persistence, and adaptability, which are essential qualities for any significant achievement. By trusting one's ability to learn and improve, the individual transforms obstacles into stepping stones and limitations into challenges to overcome rather than permanent barriers. The presence of self-belief is often subtle yet powerful. It shows in the willingness to take responsibility for one's actions, in the courage to stand up for ideas, and in the determination to continue even when results are delayed. It manifests in perseverance when others give up, in focus when distractions are abundant, and in composure when pressure is high. Each act of confidence reinforces the foundation, making future challenges easier to face. Self-belief builds momentum, because confidence in one's own capacity tends to attract effort, consistency, and positive results. Self-belief is also deeply connected to the way one perceives potential. When a person trusts themselves, they begin to see possibilities where others see limits. They approach problems creatively, identify opportunities where others see dead ends, and maintain hope when circumstances are difficult. This perspective does not ignore reality, but it reframes it. It allows the individual to act decisively, strategically, and persistently. Achievement becomes less about luck and more about a series of deliberate, confident actions fueled by trust in one's abilities. Over time, self-belief strengthens through repeated experiences of effort and success, even if small. Every step forward, every challenge met, every problem solved reinforces the inner conviction that one is capable. It becomes self-sustaining, creating a feedback loop in which confidence leads to action, action leads to progress, and progress further strengthens confidence. Even when external validation is absent, the internal trust provides the energy needed to keep moving forward, ensuring that achievements are built on a foundation that cannot easily be shaken by criticism, comparison, or temporary setbacks. Ultimately, self-belief is the root from which all achievement grows. It transforms ideas into action, potential into reality, and dreams into results. Without it, even the most talented or skilled individual may hesitate, doubt, or abandon their pursuit. With it, obstacles become manageable, setbacks become lessons, and possibilities become realities. It is the unshakable inner force that allows a person to face the unknown with courage, to keep moving when motivation fades, and to continue striving until goals are reached. Every achievement, no matter how small or great, stands as a reflection of the strength of self-belief, because it is the belief in one's own ability that makes every step forward possible. Consistency and patience are the twin forces that quietly shape transformation. They are not flashy or dramatic. They do not provide immediate recognition or applause. Yet they hold the power to turn ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Transformation does not happen overnight, nor does it occur in bursts of inspiration alone. It is built steadily through repeated actions over time, guided by the understanding that small steps taken faithfully accumulate into profound change. Consistency ensures that effort is applied regularly, while patience allows that effort to mature, grow, and bear results. Together, they create the conditions for lasting transformation. Consistency begins with commitment. It is the choice to show up day after day, regardless of mood, circumstances, or external reward. It is the discipline to perform even when excitement fades, when challenges seem heavy, or when results appear slow. Each repeated action strengthens habit, and each habit strengthens character. Over time, the accumulation of small, consistent steps creates momentum. The effects may not be visible immediately, but they are compounding beneath the surface, quietly building the foundation for growth. Whether it is in learning a skill, pursuing a goal, or developing personal strength, consistency ensures that effort is not lost, that progress is not left to chance, and that transformation becomes inevitable. Patience is equally essential because it provides the endurance required to see the results of consistent effort. Transformation rarely occurs in a straight line. There are obstacles, setbacks, delays, and moments of doubt. Without patience, these challenges can discourage effort, cause frustration, or tempt one to abandon the process altogether. Patience allows the individual to continue despite uncertainty. It teaches that the fruits of labor are not always immediate, but they are reliable when effort is sustained. In this way, patience transforms the perception of time. The waiting period is no longer wasted but becomes an essential part of the journey, allowing lessons to be learned, resilience to be developed, and growth to occur gradually but surely. Together, consistency and patience create a feedback loop. Consistent action produces incremental improvement, which reinforces belief in the process. Patience allows the individual to remain steadfast when progress feels slow, preventing burnout or despair. Each small success, no matter how minor, fuels the desire to continue, and the continued effort produces more results over time. The transformation that arises from this combination is deep and lasting because it is not dependent on fleeting motivation, sudden inspiration, or temporary excitement. It is anchored in habit, persistence, and a long-term vision. Transformation through consistency and patience also develops character. The process teaches discipline, resilience, and self-control. It demonstrates that results are not always instant, that effort must sometimes persist without recognition, and that true change is measured over months and years rather than days or weeks. By remaining consistent and patient, the individual learns to trust the process rather than demanding immediate outcomes. This trust becomes a source of confidence, allowing one to face challenges with composure, to persist through difficulty, and to embrace the journey rather than merely focusing on the destination. Another critical aspect of this principle is that transformation is cumulative. The small, consistent actions of today become the foundation for the breakthroughs of tomorrow. Every decision to continue, every moment of patience, every act of persistence contributes to a body of work that eventually manifests as visible change. It may be subtle at first, a slight improvement, a minor shift in perspective, but over time, these subtle changes compound into a profound transformation that is impossible to achieve through sporadic effort or impatience. Consistency and patience also shape mindset. They encourage long-term thinking and foster resilience against setbacks. When one understands that growth is gradual and that results take time, failure or delay is no longer devastating. Instead, it is reframed as part of the process, a necessary step in the journey. Individual to MIINTAINFOCU refocus, avoid shortcuts, est and omayan a and VECECOMMAITTED quet to the VI los SION even S when IIENTO SEEM SD merduliatane or progress seems slow. The beauty of this approach is that transformation is not limited to external achievements. Consistency and patience shape habits, strengthen discipline, deepen understanding, and build inner strength. They cultivate qualities such as perseverance, determination, and self-trust, which have far-reaching effects on every area of life. The person who commits to consistent effort and exercises patience becomes more capable, more confident,